I'm gonna go step by step through everything that I did to mix my very first live band recording with real drums. So for the 10 people that are gonna watch this, here you go. So I'm gonna show you the setup right now. My audio card, which is the Audient Evo 8, only has 4 inputs. So what I had to do was take a second computer with a second audio interface so that I could have 6 inputs total for the drums. For a room mic, I used the Audio-Technica AT2020. For the overheads, there's 2 GTS TX9s, an overhead right on top of the snare, and then a second one over the floor tom. I have 2 SM57 for the snare. Everything was set up better than in the pictures. This was at the end, so I was taking everything down, but I forgot to take pictures. So that's how we recorded the drums. Then the bass, we did just a simple DI. For the guitars, we used an SM57 with the Fender DeVille amp. So this is how I mixed everything. So these are the drums. That's for the intro, then there's the verse and the chorus. So first thing first, I aligned everything. I corrected my errors that I did when I recorded. This is what the raw drums sounded like after I aligned everything. So this is the intro. That's during the verse. Then the chorus. So I started with the snare top, actually. So this is what it sounds like. I use the SSL native channel strip. So I have a big boost around 170. I have a cut around 750. It sounded really boxy, so I cut that out. Then I have a boost around 4K, just to get that top end. And another one around 7K, 7.5. So it's just the air. So then I have another boost at the bottom end, but also a cut for a ringing frequency. So that's for the top. Then for the bottom, I have the SSL channel strip again. Another boost at the low ends, a little cut around 800, a little boost around 250, then a boost at the very top. So both together. For the snare group, I have a compressor here. And I also have a second channel, which is basically just more cuts and to be able to get a good reverb sound. So I start with this EQ. Then the reverb. And then we have a compressor. So the snare group together sounds like this. So I bring in more of the reverb during the chorus, right here with the utility. And for the verses, it's more dry. So once I had the snare, I went with the kick. So for the kick, I have a silencer, just because we could hear all of the cymbals. So then I have a boost at the bottom end, 1K, and then a shelf, and a bit of saturation to give it an extra punch. So that with the snares. Now for the overheads, this is what they sound like. Then during the verse and the chorus. So they are both aligned to the snare. For the processing of the overheads, I have another channel strip, which is basically doing the same kind of boost and cuts as I did for the snare. So at this point, we kind of have the whole kit. The room mic, the AT2020, sounds like this. So that's for the intro, for the verse, and for the chorus. So what I did for that was cut some lows, cut the high end, cut a bit of the boxiness around here. So then I have a compressor. Fast attack, fast release, and then a bit of saturation. And so the whole drum at this point will sound like this. I found that we couldn't really hear the toms at some point for the fills. So I took the same input as the overheads, but just the tom parts so I could process it differently. So I just took these parts throughout the whole song, just where the toms play. And I have another channel strip. I have a silencer to take off some of those cymbals, and then a bit of another EQ right here. So at this point, my drums were sounding kind of like this. For the drum group, what I did was add some compression. And using Cymatics Diablo, a little bit of clipping, punch. So once I had all my drums laid out, I started with the guitars. So for the guitar, I have this take right here that goes throughout the whole song. It has just this as an EQ, a little bit of overdrive, the JJP plugin. I'm always using the Clean Guitar 2 preset as a starting point. So I have that, and I have a DI signal as well, which if I take this out, for the chorus part, what happens is this first take of the guitar will cut out, and then the DI signal kicks in. And then it comes back the other way, and it does that the whole song. So for the more distorted parts, I use the DI signal. Then I have a second take for the verses. So there's not really that much processing for this guitar. It's really just cutting out the low end, and it's straight the input from the mic. For the chorus, we needed more punch, so we did 2 other takes with the muff pedal. So I have the first guitar here, then a DI signal, which is using the DI signal using the heavy rocker preset, and the second one. And actually for the second verse, we can still hear this muff guitar, but it's very low in the mix. So it's just to give it a bit more extra oomph for that second verse. So all of the guitars together will sound like this. So these two are very aggressive. So I'm always blending in these two that are a bit cleaner, just so we can better hear the note changes. Towards the end, we have this feedback. So what it is this first feedback right here. And I basically just put it through a bunch of reverb, saturation, and then an auto pan. And I did the same with a higher pitched one. So the feedbacks will play at the end of the chorus. For the very last part, we add more leads. And then we have a couple of bends. And you can hear how noisy the guitars were there. So that's for the very last part, where we go from here. And then we add the bends right here. That pretty much covers all the guitars. As you can see, I did not clean up my session, so it's really messy. So the bass is really simple. I just did it through a DI. I'm just cutting really the lowest end here. I have a multi-band compressor, which at this point would sound like this. That's the intro, then the verse. And the chorus. So I have after the multi-band compressor, I'm just doing another compression just to tighten up a bit the sound. And it's going through the Ampeg SVT plugin. And for the choruses with the bass, we also add a big muff. And a bit more saturation as well. And that's pretty much what the whole thing about the bass. And if you're wondering why I have 2 tracks, this is just basically everything frozen. So I could save some CPU power. And at this point, we would have pretty much everything except the vocals. Oh, I also added this crash. My crash is very dry, so it cuts off like instantly. For the vocals, this is the main track. Everything is double tracked. And I'm not doing that much EQ to it. This is how it sounds.
Pars pas, s'il te plaît, c'est toi que je veux. Pars pas, s'il te plaît, c'est toi que je veux.
So I added some EQ. Then I have a little bit of golfos going on just to tame some frequencies. Then I'm using the Xenozoics compressor.
Pars pas, s'il te plaît, c'est toi que je veux. Pars pas, s'il te plaît, c'est toi que je...
Then I have the SSL native vocal strip. I'm cutting a bit of the 340 frequencies. I'm boosting at 8K. And I have a deploser and the de-esser. Then I have this nectar, which I just used for the tape.
Pars pas, s'il te plaît, c'est toi que je veux. Pars pas, s'il te...
Then I have a gold plate.
Pars pas, s'il te plaît, c'est toi que je veux. Pars pas, s'il te plaît.
And I boost the volume at the end.
Pars pas, s'il te...
That's pretty much the whole chain for the vocals, but we did another take, which is basically the same thing, it's just going lower.
Papa, s'il te plaît, c'est toi que je veux. Papa.
So this, for the processing of this one, is much more lo-fi. So I have this weird shelf, the low-high shelf.
Papa, s'il te plaît.
Then it's going through a 76, a 670, a de-esser. I'm using the male rock preset. Then it's going through a bunch of saturation.
Papa,
then I am EQing it again to tame some of the vocals.
s'il te plaît, c'est toi que je veux.
And that with the main vocal.
Papa, s'il te plaît, c'est toi que je veux.
So it's really buried down there.
Papa, s'il te plaît, c'est toi que...
So for the chorus, we did another take. For as far as the main group processing, we're just cutting high end and low end. We have another compressor doing around 6 dB of compression. We have a lot more reverb. And for this take, we're actually using a doubler as well. And it's using the male backing vocals preset. So all together.
Moi je veux pas grand chose d'autre que toi.
And this is how everything sounds at this point.
Moi je veux pas grand chose d'autre que toi.
I also have this reverb where we are sending a little bit of vocals and drums. And it's animated so that it only kicks in when everything starts, because at first the drums is very dry. And then it kicks in with everything else. So for the master channel, we're starting off with an EQ. I started with this cut around 280 because everything was building up here. Then I have a shelf for the bass. And the cut. cutting 1 dB around 750. Then around 1.5K, I have a little bit of a boost. And that's it for that. Then we're going into a compressor with a 10 millisecond attack, very fast release, doing about 2 dB of compression. Then we have a tape saturation plugin. Then golf us, just to recover, tame, and that's it. Then I have the imager, which I'm basically just separating more around 200 to 1K, and then the very high end. And finally, we have a limiter. And this is what it sounds like all together.